Yeah.
Welcome to another episode of Lightbulb Moments. This is episode number 183. I'm glad you're joining us today. Remember, Lightbulb Moments is all about finding inspiration, ideas, or something to help propel you to a better future. And whatever that looks like for you, we're glad you're with us today. Whether you're joining us live or you're listening to the podcast or watching us on YouTube, feel free to give us your light bulb moments of your own. Use the chat, use the comments. We love hearing from you. Lightbulb Moments is sponsored and produced by Qnity with the help of a couple of sponsors, including Lightheart Sanders, CPA firm, and Zenoti technology platform, which, by the way, our guest happens to be the CEO of Zenoti, which we'll get to, Sudheer, in just a moment here. So, so thank you to our sponsors and thanks for tuning in today. I think you're going to find this episode to be extremely rich. So anyway, without any further ado, I would like to introduce you to and welcome Sudheer Koneru. And Sudheer, good morning. How are you today?
Yeah, doing good, doing good. Good morning. Glad to be here.
You're up early. You're out on the West Coast. You're up in Seattle, right?
Yes, we're in Seattle. Yes, yes.
All right. Well, we are going to get into a great topic today. And within Lightbulb Moments, we have several subtopics and themes, and one of them is data. And we're going to talk about data today. Sudheer and Zenoti has just recently released their 2025 Beauty and Wellness Benchmark Report, and I have been pouring through it, Sudheer.
Good, good, good. I'm glad you're looking at it. So it takes some effort to get the data together. So yeah.
Well, so let's be honest. There's a data deficit in this industry.
Mhm.
And I think one of the things that we have in common is we have appreciation for data because we know data drives good decisions. And by the way, I want to throw something out at you. I attended your Energize conference last fall, which I thought was phenomenal, by the way. And you shared a slide that had something to do with businesses that access their reports were more likely to be more successful than those that didn't. Speak about, I know we didn't talk about that recently, but that always
Yeah,
stuck with me. Can you address
yeah.
that?
It was just a curious exercise. So in the system, we can track how many people use the reporting side and look at dashboards and data and all the reports they have. So we just did an analysis which says who uses reports more. So we looked at the usage analysis and then we took the top 10%, 25%, and then the rest in terms of usage of reports. And it so happens that the top guys, of course, have, much higher performance metrics in terms of growth and everything. So just the sheer aspect that businesses which seem to be looking at data seem to be doing outperforming their peer groups as well, kind of stuff. So yeah.
We're about 2 minutes into this conversation and we've already had a light bulb moment. You know, we talk a lot about data matters, but I think you just gave us another reason why data matters. And you're able to show a correlation between performance and use of data. So, all right, we got a lot to unpack today. And I'm afraid we're going to run out of time. We might even need a part two to this. So, anyway, I poured over the 2025 benchmark report that just has been released. I had a sneak peek of it about a month ago and just looked at it again. It's about the same as a month ago. So I poured over it then, I poured over it again. Last year, I poured over your whole report. And I want to get to some of the findings that I think is most interesting to our listeners. That sound good?
Sure, sounds good.
So first of all, maybe just a little bit of background. So in terms of your data pool, 30,000, is that about the right number?
Yeah, it's
30,000?
about 30,000 businesses, but broken out into med spas, salon spas. But majority, like I would say, about 20,000 is salon spa. Like med spas is slightly less than 10,000. Yes.
And your definition of the 30,000 is actually a location. So 30,000 locations, you call them centers,
Locations.
right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
All right. So it looked like overall growth was what, 2% in
Yes.
2024?
Yeah, it was not that great of a year in terms of overall growth of same store sales. That is, the 2% is the same store sales. Yeah.
And then last year, when on your report from 2023, which was released a year ago, it was 5% growth. So growth is down a little bit compared to the previous year, right?
Yes, it is definitely. And that's we should have actually done a little more work in the ticket sizes to show that I think maybe pricing went up. So actually the real footfall maybe came down a tad bit and the businesses still managed to keep the growth because of ticket size going up.
Gotcha. And by a way of context for our listeners, what you've done is you've broken down your findings into three categories: top, high, and average. Do you want to go through those classifications for a moment?
Yeah, the top achievers basically are the top 10% of the performers in the category, like whether it's salon, spa, med spa, etc. And then the high achievers is the top 25% kind of in the people who belong in that. And then the rest is the average, is how we categorize it. So we have three buckets, the top 10% and then the next 25% and then the rest.
Okay, all right. Couple interesting things, a lot of interesting things. All right, I want to prioritize. I want to make so gift card sales were up though.
Yes.
And then I found a very interesting stat about gift card sales for salons being up even more. Do you want to go there for a moment?
Yes, gift card sales, especially for salons, went up the most in the last year. And we still are very aggressive believers, and we tell all our customers to invest in selling gift cards and promoting it, etc. Because they went up, like, I think almost 90% or something, if I'm not mistaken, the number was. And it also turns out that the gift cards are a good source of new customer revenue as well, because almost 25 or 30% of them are used by new customers, not your existing folks. So, and the world is running out of things to gift in general. How many iPhones or watches or things you can give to your family and friends. So people are, and the younger people are switching more and more to gifting experiences, not objects kind of thing. And so I think if they have a good experience in the store and there is a prominent gift card program being promoted at the front desk, it is a reminder for me saying, oh yeah, I could gift this. Why should I gift something else? And so that'll be nice to give to friends. So I think, yeah, and we find outliers in the salon space also who make a killing in gift cards. I mean, it's crazy how much money they make. There are some outliers who really invest heavily. So I think I would definitely recommend, it's a no-brainer, simple exercise for every business owner saying, hey, just do gift card programs and make them attractive. There are different ways to do gift card programs. You can do buy one, get one free. You can do discounts and all kinds of stuff. So.
It's traditionally been reserved or traditionally been more of a focus for spas. And I think what you're suggesting is some salons are providing, more salons are providing some winning strategies for gift card sales.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Client count. What I found overall looked like client count or visits were down 1%. New client visits were down 9%. But existing client visits were up 1%. Pretty small growth there.
Yes, very small. And that's why the businesses are not growing much because of that. The footfall is not increasing in any material sense. Yeah.
So, and then med spa, I find interesting is med spa is feeling a little bit more pressure in tickets. I think their average ticket was down like 9%.
Yes. So yeah, med spas have been booming. I mean, the growth in med spas has been crazy, and we find in terms of even new customers coming on board with Zenoti, med spas is growing up, and then even our existing customers, because we work with a lot of brands which have multiple stores, and they have grown, I think, by about 15% or something in terms of adding 15% more locations during the year. So they are growing much faster. But I think that growth is also causing competitive pressure in the market because there's so many people rushing to this med spa space. So pricing is coming down. And I have a suspicion that we'll see that price pressure even this year, is my hunch, because I have not seen that growth back off kind of thing.
So many more are getting on the med spa bandwagon.
Yes.
driving pressure and pricing, but we're seeing a surge in more med spa locations. Does that pretty much sum it up?
Absolutely. And I think it may be good for, I mean, it logical for consumers because early days, the pricing tends to be a bit high because you don't have as much competition. So I think the consumers come out winning in the sense of this. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Other super interesting data points here. And let's unpack this one, okay? So 42%, I want to make sure I get this right. 42% of clients, or if I'll stumble through, but bear with me. 42% of clients, they come in for a second visit, or at least one, more than one visit, represents 80% of your sales. 58% only come in for one visit, and that represents 20% of your
Yeah.
sale. Help unpack that one for me, will you?
Yeah. So basically, I think a lot of people are very obsessed around finding new customers, but reality is that your existing customers are really contributing the most. If you look at your revenue pie in the average industry, 80% of the revenue comes from existing customers. So protecting that, making sure they don't go anywhere, and you can retain them is a very important element, is what I would say. And and I think today's software and technology tools make it pretty easy. You just need to do it. It's a one-time setup to make sure, what are the rules and of engagement with with a customer who has maybe not come back on time for their service, and how do you want to reach out to them? All that can be fully automated, no matter what software, what tool you're using, it doesn't matter. So I think just making sure investing that one-time exercise and saying, let's ensure that we have thought through this very cleanly and established it, goes a long way because then you're protecting a huge section of your business. Yeah.
All right, you got a data point that's not even in the report. And
Yes.
in
And
fact,
thanks to you asking for it. So,
and I do want to give you a public shout out because, again, I started out this whole session about the data deficit, and you are providing data that matters. You're doing it on a timely basis, and I got a lot of respect for that. And then during our prep call, I threw something out to you, and overnight, I don't know how you did it, but you came up with a data point that I've been super curious about for years. All right. And so what I asked you yesterday is how many new clients come in for a second visit? And I've seen data go anywhere from 20 to 40%. We landed on a number like only 29% come back for a second visit. So anyway, I don't know how you did it, but you somehow came up. So let's unpack that. And so what you were able to figure out overnight is that 43%, at least for salons, and I think spas was 44%,
mhm.
come back for a second visit. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. So of all the new customers who walk into a store, 43% come back for a second visit across all salons, basically. Yeah.
I'm going to unpack that a little bit more for some other data points because that number seems high to me. And maybe it has to do with the use of your technology. So it could be a shout out to what you're doing, but I'm surprised that's higher than I thought. We'll unpack that later. So,
Yeah.
thanks for
And as
getting.
and as I said, it depends on technology, depends on the guest experience, and also Zenoti does tend to work with more well-established brands in general, who probably have better operating processes and all that kind of stuff. So that could also be the case. But yeah, but it does cover a spectrum of things. It's not just higher things. We work with even barbershops and all kinds of categories. So
Let's get over to something that you're continually measuring and speaking about as an opportunity, and that's cancellation and no-show rates.
yes.
What I found in the report was, at least for salons, there's an 8% cancellation rate and a 3% no-show rate. Let's unpack that a little bit, as well as maybe how top performers are different than others, some winning strategies, etc.
Yeah, and I think definitely there are some categories where that no-show rate is going up a lot more, and it is a concern for us more because the industry is used to is going off with more and more online booking solutions, so it makes it easier and easier for customers to book their appointments online. So we didn't put that in the benchmark report, but there is a subtle trend of slow increase in those cancellation rates, on an annual basis. If you look at the last 3 years trend, it's a small increase, but it is trending upwards in that sense. And I think that's because we just make it super easy to make bookings now compared to 3, 4 years ago across multiple salons, not just the best salons. So that's one. And then, they're not putting any rules around saying, I want a card on file or some inhibitor to say, what, let me watch out. So I think there are things we lay out in that report which says what could people do to protect themselves against this cancellation and no-show rates. And one is, of course, just seeing if you want to do a card on file. Even having automated waitlist, we have found that people who Zenoti has an automated waitlist feature. It's not necessarily there in all the systems, but when you turn it on, it can add like $2,000-3,000 in terms of incremental revenue through the automated waitlist. That is the bookings which came because a waitlist triggered, customer was reached out to, and the customer picked up the grab that spot kind of thing. And so it matters. I mean, you can say $2,000-3,000 is not much, but I think when you're looking at your P&L and profitability, that matters. And some people may feel like, oh, I would have anyway got the guest next week, if not this week. But you don't know. I mean, it's a competitive world. Maybe they got tired of waiting and say, okay, fine, let me just go to this other place and get my service done for this month, kind of thing. So
With online booking, looks like the top performers ran a rate of 59%, high performers 43%, an average of 30%. So the top performers were almost twice as more likely, or twice the rate of online booking. That's a big, big difference.
yes. And so I do think it matters that you have a good online booking, which ensures that you have thought through, even if you're all our Zenoti customers, not all our online booking across all Zenoti customers is the same. It depends on how they configure it, how they set it up, make sure, all the services are available to book online and, is the configurations correct? You've described your providers. Are the schedules set up correctly in the system? There's a lot of elements which go into it, right? So I do think there's a very stark correlation that if you do a very good job of managing your online booking, you will have better performance. And I think the utilization and all those are much better for those businesses.
Let's talk about utilization for a moment. That I was going to get to that next, and I've got your report up on my side screen here. And it looks like staff utilization, which is percentage of available time in which services are delivered. The top performers were 84% utilization rate. High was 76%, and average was 67%.
Yeah. And given the staff cost is the biggest part, you do all the P&L work. Yesterday, you were educating me around it. And what percent of your per P&L statement is your staff cost? I think utilization is the biggest decider of, whether a salon will do well or have trouble in terms of that. So I think, big divergence between the excellently run businesses in terms of utilization.
You used the word biggest. That just jumped out at me. The staff utilization, so basically productivity being the biggest. Unpack why you used the word biggest and what you meant by that.
It's because it is the largest part of your cost structure in overall. So if you can manage the largest part of your cost structure more efficiently, I mean, it'll have the biggest impact on your P&L. You can go try to tweak a little bit on your inventory costs or your rental costs or your operating, but those tweaks will be too small, no matter how hard you work at it, right? Whereas if you can figure out how to get that utilization better, I mean, suddenly now your costs are, obviously, if your utilization is high at 80% and you made that 60%, that means they have increased their staff cost because that's how they're running the business. So, and I think I've even heard other people, like when I talk to, Van Michael as an example, I think he's very clear in his head in terms of how much money a provider needs to get to before you will add another provider kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He's super particular about those things. And I was impressed about, because Van comes across as this guy who's like very laid back and, loud speaking guy, but he's very business savvy guy. And he knows that, look, I am not hiring another guy till this utilization gets to this level. So he's been doing this without technology for ages, but I'm just telling you, tech at least shows the data now.
You brought up Van Council for a moment. I'll share a little story that really validates. So I stayed at his house once, and in his basement, there was a complete wall of books. I'm not talking about a bookshelf. I'm talking about it. And he really has this profile and how he carries himself as being a good old Georgia boy, but he's no old school. I asked him how many of those books he read. And he just looked at me. He said, "Do you mean twice?"
Yeah.
Anyway, so staff utilization, interesting because the P&L study, which is I'm deep into right now, and I just become more fascinated by the day, the findings from the P&L study, which, by the way, Zenoti's a sponsor of, so thank you for that. I think our data work is very complementary, Sudheer. You're really dealing with all the top line metrics that come out of POS. You're unpacking it, you're dicing it, all of that. We're looking more at the the profitability side, and we did find a very high correlation between average revenue per employee and profitability, but that's for another day.
Yeah.
All right. Rebooking rate. So rebooking rate, there's a lot of salons set goals around this, but you show that top earners were at 30%, high earners were at 17%, and the average was only 10%. Wow, that seems low to me. And now you're just so we're clear here, percentage of appointments booked within 24 hours of the latest visit. That's your criteria.
Yes. So the way we measure the rebooking is because, businesses are not going to mark saying this is a rebooking, this is not. So we simply say if the booking appointment was made within 24 hours of your last appointment, it'd be classified as a rebooking. That's all.
So I had an early look at your report, and then I had a second look at your report to see if there was any updates. And I did notice one subtle change between an early version and the one I just got, and I'll call that one out. You added tailor every aspect of the guest experience. Hyper personalization increases retention rates by 30%. What is hyper personalization mean? Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all about, how well, like, when you engage with a guest in terms of any of your mailers and macros, and everything is personalized to the guest, not like, generally sending stuff, it's the name of the person, the provider, knowing that who was their last provider, and including that in the mailer that you send out, etc. I think making the effort to make sure that every that engagement is in that manner is is what we refer to as personal. Many businesses keep things as very generic, but making it more personalized in any communication materials you send out to your guests, basically.
You also had something in there about tip rates, which is interesting, and saw tip rates anywhere from 14 to 18%, depending on, the top, high, and average. So I've seen similar numbers to that, in that 18%. So that's interesting to see that validated. So
yeah. And I think we should have done this, but we can also classify this tip rate based on how you ask for the tip. Like, some salons will do it like a coffee shop does it, where you say you're checking out and you get to choose to pick the, tip rate. And some salons will be like, okay, how much would you like to tip? And then I'll do the work because I'm the receptionist to add the tip. The people who do it such that the receptionist doesn't ask, but you put a display on the front. The display one, you get more, about 2% more in tips on the average across businesses. Whereas if you are the provider asking and you don't have that set up like a typical nowadays, if you go to a coffee shop and they'll have this the display. Because in the display, you get to configure it the way you want. You get to say you pick 20 or 25 or whatever the person, and then there's a custom amount. So most people will just hit the default and not take the time to hit the custom, right? So I think I wish we had done that in the report to give that data, because even in Zenoti customers, not all of them do the concept where the guest gets to pick the tip on a small display on their front, and we do support that, but many salons don't do that. And so we are encouraging all our customers saying, hey, you should just flip this over, let the guest pick, don't ask them how much tip do you want.
All right. I love the report. I find it super helpful. It really does give a state of the industry. Here it's in the middle of March, so we're not waiting. Doing the P&L study is a little bit different. What I have to do is I have to wait till people that finalize their P&Ls. So we can't do it as quick as you guys. You guys can just, once you put your person power into it, you can run it, and it's no small task. So, but I want to move away from the benchmark. Actually, hold on. There's one area that you always talk about, memberships. And I would be remiss if we didn't talk about memberships, how that affects the data and all that. And you're pretty passionate about that subject, including how it relates to salons. So let's delve into memberships as our final point in the benchmark report. And then I've got a few other really important topics for you.
Yeah, and yes, absolutely. In terms of, this is where I feel like we keep saying this to all our guests, customers as well, that, don't underestimate the power of memberships. I think memberships is written off to spas. Usually they start off with spas and then have slowly evolved into salons as well. But the interesting point was, I think last year we had the membership businesses are outperformed in growth relative to all other businesses across all categories, of course. But even within salons, while people may think there aren't too many salons which do memberships, we did find salons that are also starting to do memberships in different buckets. And, they have their growth rates are much better than the non-membership salons. And it does get challenging because, I've spent time with, like, for example, even Supercuts, Regis, the CEO, and talk about it's a challenge for them. It's a big business and you have to roll it out, right? But they are doing some tests in certain markets in the country, doing memberships, etc. And I think memberships will make businesses far more robust. And once you sign up a member, they, kind of usually would be with you for a year. And the benefit of it is, let's say you have a competitor next door who opens up. Well, I have membership, so I have time to respond to this new competitor. I will figure out how I will respond, what I'll do to my service or my interior or whatever it is. And so there's a lot of side benefits, not just of predictable cash flow and everything, but and people get worried that, okay, wait, if I launch a membership, if I have guests who are coming 12 times in a year, all of them are, of course, going to sign up for it, and I'm going to lose money because instead of charging $100, I'm going to end up charging $80 because I have to give a deal for the membership to make it attractive. It can't be the list price. But I think one of the ways I encourage people to try it is you don't need to put up the membership outside your door and make sure all the people who are coming 12 times a year sign up. You define the program with the full intention that I intend to launch it, but you send out a promotional offer to people who have maybe visited only 3 times in a year and say, hey, we've just launched this membership program. Would you like to sign up? This is the cost. And if you find that out of the universe of 100 people in the people who've come 3 times a year, 20% of them sign up. Well, there you know that, wow, now I have converted this 20% of these people to be 12 times a year customer kind of thing, right? And so then you can go out more boldly and say, let me roll it out to the other people. If, let's say, you fail, fine, honor it for the people who signed up. It doesn't matter. You offered it to a specific clientele group and tell them at the end of the year, we have retired the program if you choose to retire it. But there are ways to experiment with this, is my point. You need to target people and experiment, and you'll very quickly know the answer.
Most of the memberships that you see, for example, in salons require an upfront, like a gift card. You're paying upfront for a year of services. So it can create some immediate cash flow, but it does create a liability at the same time. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can have memberships in both ways. One is you can have that upfront flow because so you get a cash flow immediate infusion. But you can also offer the guest a monthly payment where you put your card on file and I'll just charge you every month kind of thing. But they're committed to going through with it for a year kind of thing. So you can do both. And the good thing about memberships is, you do the P&L study. It's very easy for you to, when you look at the P&L saying, okay, if I had 100 members, how secure is my business? I'm very close to break even at this number of members. So it's an easy way to measure it. And then everything is a benefit on top.
Okay. Thank you for doing this study.
And by the way, because you and I spoke, Tom, I was told our team because we will put out a report which is more focused on this category called, for lack of a better name, more of a luxury salon, right? So it'll be, only the top salons because we do work with a lot of, top salons. So as soon as it's there, I'll share it with you and you should share it with this group, with your group of people.
Great. It's really, again, you're doing work to narrow the data deficit.
Yeah.
And the industry needs the data deficit to collapse. And so anyway, all right.
And also, thanks to your input, you gave this input last time we had towards the end of last year, saying, hey, can we do a quarterly kind of a pulse of the industry kind of stuff rather than wait for the annual because waiting for the year is like too far out. And so we have introduced in Zenoti to your exactly as per your spec. There are, I think, 5 metrics like the footfall, the average ticket size, and other things. So you get to see it on a quarterly basis in the dashboard to say, how is this relative to last quarter and same quarter last year kind of thing in the system. So it's now live in the system thanks to your feedback. So
well, it's amazing. All right, I'm going to get over to a couple of big pain points, okay? We're going to move away from the report, and I've been dying to talk to you about this. Data or no data, okay?
sure.
Because these are like very top of mind for me. And there's 2 pain points that I want to address and look at solutions. Number 1 is in the P&L study, obviously labor is the number 1 cost for salons. Essentially, we're showing it's about 60.5% of all the money out's going to labor related. But when we unpack that, we have to separate between service and non-service. Service payroll, we found a pretty narrow band between, top performing and all salons. It was surprisingly narrow. It wasn't that wide. It was in that 45% range, plus or minus. Non-service payroll is very different from that. It's a very wide range. I mean, anywhere from 7% up to 15%. Anyway, salons are running at about 5% profitability. They're like restaurants. It's razor thin any margin we can get there. So one major pain point is non-service payroll. And so and I've been talking about this all the time. Technology is going to have to help with this. And so let's talk about that. And I know you've got some features that I'm excited about. So let's talk about that one first. Then the other subject we're going to get to is payroll, processing payroll. But let's deal with non-service payroll today or right now, and maybe some winning strategies that are tech-driven, okay?
Cool. Yeah. And I think this works very well. It's interesting insight that I didn't know that what you said, that there's such a big variance in non-service payroll, and that is the contributor towards more profitable and less profitable salons. So the good news at least is, at a generic industry level, I would say to you that technology with AI is going to absolutely solve a lot of these problems. If AI is not going to cut hair, but it is going to help you with all the non-service payroll, right? Because it is going to streamline everything in the business end to end. While we may think, oh, this is going to take a long time, AI is going to be like, they will be busy solving other industry problems. Who's going to solve this? I can tell you that, yeah, even we are so close and imminent with we're just like, for example, launching a AI receptionist, in the sense of someone you don't know that you're speaking to an AI. I don't know if you've tried ChatGPT and you speak to it, and it can be real lifelike in terms of emotion, in terms of how it engages. So we have our first 2 brands which are going live with a AI receptionist to completely take the calls. And So sometimes people can be worried, okay, if we do this AI reception, it's all going to be a mess. So what happens, and to make owners at ease, is we say those who use our AI tools, actually every receptionist calls get transcribed and analyzed, and there's a sentiment analysis done, and it's already doing that in Zenoti. So you get to know, this person is very good or has 10% of their calls, our sentiment is not that great, and AI flags them. Now, what happens when you turn on an AI receptionist is it's just another receptionist. And you say, I want 20% of my calls to go to this AI receptionist. And the AI receptionist is also rated by a separate AI. So they get to see how is the AI receptionist ranking along with their 2 or 3 other receptionists. And over time, I think you'll find that the AI receptionists will outperform all the humans. And hence, they would have to say, fine, let's just give 100% of the traffic to the AI receptionist, right? Because remember, AI receptionists don't have a bad day. They are always they're asking for add-ons. They're always very personalized. They will always say, no, who's your last provider? They'll say, hey, would you like to do this with John again? I saw last time you took this additional service. You forgot to tell me about that. Would you like me to put that in? And how many staff will be absolutely precise about doing it, right? But the AI receptionist will be always precise and always perfect in everything. So I think interesting times are ahead. And I do think by the end of this year, you'll find these will become prevalent across the board. That's one. But even in other areas, like not just receptionists, when you say non-service payroll, people who do marketing or drive all that, you are getting AI agents. Firstly, of course, salons even here and now could be very good at being efficient, saying, can we just use our marketing tools efficiently, set it up, and not have to keep messing with it all the time so that their marketing costs are lower. But what's coming, Tom, down the road is AI agents. We are actually working on one which will release in Q3, which is the AI agent will figure out everything. It'll know, it's like saying, it'll tell you exactly what marketing campaigns it wants to run, what offers it wants to run, lay out the entire workflow of the whole thing. All you need to do is say okay or not okay. That's all. And it'll tell you whether it's working, and it'll learn on its own. And this capability is there here and now. So we are trying to bring that to the market as well. So if we do that, some of the marketing costs of businesses will go down because AI, again, will be far more precise about doing the right things.
So we have 2 line items on the P&L. We've got non-service payroll, we have marketing, and there's more than that, but that's really the synopsis there. And I love what you said is they don't have a bad day either.
Yes.
All right. There's one other topic I want to get to, but I also want to be respectful of time here for our listeners and you too. And this happens to be with another pain point. It's very top of mind right now because we're working with a client that's multi-location, and we're really assessing some of their costs related to, for example, the finance function. And we're finding out how much time it actually takes for them to process payroll. And by the way, I can't tell you how many times we've done a live workshop, Sudheer, and an owner or manager had to step away or get up early or stay late at night because they were doing payroll. Anyway, this is top of mind for me because we have, again, a company that we're trying to help, and they're really looking at the finance function and payroll. And they have an individual that's spending about 5 days a month, 2.5 days every pay period working on payroll. I think you've got some good news as it relates to lowering the burden of payroll and all that goes into doing it. So let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. And usually, traditionally, payroll is the way you do it is you get reports from your point of sale and do some magic in an Excel file in terms of the commission models that you have. And so this person, you said 2.5 days they're doing, they got to get it right, the magic in terms of who gets what commission. There are lots of complex rules. And then they got to go work with, an ADP or Gusto, et cetera, to run the payroll. And then once the payroll happens, the employees start getting their pay slips and they're like, okay, this doesn't make sense. I need someone to talk to that this is not correct. You missed some numbers, and they dispute the thing or whatever because there's no transparency. You just got that, and I have to trust that you got it right. It's very hard to trust the number kind of thing. So with Zenoti, what we're doing now is that we have, of course, it's integrated payroll in Zenoti. So Zenoti runs the payroll, which means, firstly, if you configure all your rules in Zenoti, and if we support all your nuances of how you compute payroll, then there's no work involved. It's literally, it generates the payroll at the end of the pay period, shows it to you. You just have to approve. It tells you if you have the money in the bank or not, because Zenoti actually does have access to the bank balance as well. And then it'll process the payroll completely on its own. And the nice part is, so the employee, when they open the Zenoti app, which they use to check their day and book their appointments and their guests and notes, etc., the same app, they see their payroll and they see their pay slip. And they say, oh, okay, that's the pay slip. Now, if they have a question, you click on your number, it's going to connect you back to all your appointments and your tips and everything and say, no, I did the math right. If you have a problem, look at your app and it will tell you that this is correct, what I just did, the math kind of stuff, right? So the key at the end of it, though, is the term that, of course, the entire commission model has to be configured within Zenoti. If you take the data out of Zenoti and do all the commission model, and then you want to run the payroll and bring it back to Zenoti, then again, it won't correlate. So it is critical, and that's what we've been working with all our customers is saying we are going to make sure any rule that you have around commission, it has to be in Zenoti, and then you're all home free in the sense the whole payroll work disappears from the people kind of stuff.
Yeah. Wow, I love this whole conversation. I love our collaboration, Sudheer. You've got your head and heart in the right place, which I think is great. And you're really showing how technology can help with data, with solutions to solve pain points. And I get more and more excited when I think about the future because how technology can actually enable what who we serve is dealing with their pain points, their opportunities, and all of that. So, yeah, we'll have to have another part 2 of this conversation to go through the quarterly report. I know Zenoti's part of the Phil this year, which is great. And you're a graduate of University of Texas, right?
Yes, Austin. Yes. In fact, I always told myself I'm going to live in Austin because I used to love Austin. And then I came to work at Microsoft in Seattle. And ever since then, I've never been able to leave Seattle. I'm stuck here. So,
well, I'm down here for the month. And I just found out yesterday you're going to be in the Austin area. So we're going to get to see each other in person and have dinner, which I very much look forward to. So everybody, let's give Sudheer a virtual round of applause. Give him a little shout in the chat there. If you're with us live, if you're listening to the podcast, put a note in the comments. And you're getting a lot of love coming your way, Sudheer. A lot of bravo and all that stuff. Great session. Thank you, Sudheer. Thanks for listening, everybody. And I'm very optimistic about the future because of some of the things that you're providing. So thanks again, my friend. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I
always
love these discussions with you. Yeah.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks much. And we'll see you very soon.